Friends, if you have been looking for a short josei series or just more josei in general, today's video review is for you. So very excited for this because this series is phenomenal. Hello friends, happy Friday. So excited that you're here. I am doing a manga review of a josei series. I feel like it's really hard to come by josei in the US. I don't know why this is. Maybe there's more josei that I'm just not super familiar with. I have some josei on my bookcase, but when I did my manga collection video earlier this year, that was like the least demographic I had represented in my collection. So I've definitely been trying to find and read more josei as well as review on this channel. And today we're doing that kind of video review because I actually read this series digitally. I had gotten some approved digital copies to read beforehand. I knew that when the manga released that I was like, I want this in my collection. I love it so much. And that manga that I'm going to be talking about today is My Coworker Has a Secret. This is published by Tokyopop. I do believe this has a live adaptation movie or something in Japan. I don't think it's available in English, but apparently it's really popular. Rightfully so, in my opinion. Oh my goodness. I love this manga just as much as I did the very first time that I read it. I laughed so much, and let me just pause there before I go into the excited rambles. Let me tell you what this series is about. It is about our main girl. Her name is Akari. She is a 25-year-old woman in the place that she works at, and the thing is nobody knows that she is a huge fangirl of this idol. His name is Renren, and what nobody knows, I mean, they don't know that she's a fangirl, but they also don't know she is financially not doing well. We're talking about she spends so much money on Renren that she barely has enough food to eat. She talks about how she sort of cheats to look like she's doing really well off in clothes and makeup when honestly she's just spending all of her money on him. But the thing is one day she finally has enough money to buy lunch because she hasn't eaten lunch for 3 days, or she was eating some kind of sesame seed or something. But the day she finally has the money to buy lunch, she's out at the park, a pigeon steals her lunch, and she's like, I have no more money to go to the store and buy anything else. She's like, I barely have anything to eat at home. So she's walking back to work. She sees this bento box with all of this delicious food just sitting on a bench. And the thing is, the bento belongs to this man here. His name is Kazama. I believe so you say his name. He asked, do you want this bento box? Because her stomach is growling like crazy. And she's like, oh my goodness, yes. And as she's there, she's pouring out her heart to this stranger of why she loves Renren, what has happened to her money, and what has happened to her lunch. And he just sort of takes it all in stride. He just quietly listens to her. But there's a plot twist though. She thinks this man is a stranger. What she's not prepared for is that when she comes back from her lunch break, he is her new coworker. And she's like, do not tell anybody that I am a fangirl. I have kept this quiet. Do not out me. And so begins this hilarious and very humorous story. When I first read this manga, I gushed about it at some point because this was actually, or was, my favorite read of whatever month I read it in. Maybe it was February, because I remember I struggled. Was this my favorite read for that month, or was it Gat Papa? Because I love Gat Papa. I've read that manga way too many times at this point, but it is so good. Highly recommend that one as well. But I read it that month and I decided to say this was my favorite read because the validation was so incredibly real when I read this. Even the second time, I mean, the validation was definitely real, but I was not trying to attempt a manga budget, and I talk more about that here if you're interested. So it was a little bit of a struggle in reading it this time, knowing I just couldn't go buy out merch as I wanted. But that was where I felt the strong relatability to our main girl, because she's just spending all of her money on Renren. And the reason I really related to that is because it really thinks of the merch, the money that I have spent on hiking merch specifically. I probably put way too much money into his character, but I absolutely love him. And I really love hearing Akari share why she spends her money the way that she does. Maybe it's not the best of decisions, because even she says that maybe I should try and save up, but she talks about what happened woman to let her to this moment where she doesn't really have savings or anything like that, but there is a scene where she's telling Kazama why she loves Renren, why he changed her life, and why she is just so thankful for him and how he has impacted her as the woman that she is today. I felt the same way, but with Hinata from Haikyuu. I was thinking last night, right before this video review, of how many years ago when I first met him, and there was a certain scene in the anime, because I was watching the anime at that time, I was struggling very deeply with imposter syndrome, and I remember standing in my bathroom and just sobbing because his character, perseverance, and how he blindly trusted Kageyama, it just struck me so strongly, and he's changed my life. I am sort of who I am today to a degree because of him. And so Akari talks about that. She has that same life-changing moment, and it leads to her, how's it say on the back, ruining her financially, related so very much to her in that regard. I could not relate with her, I'm not gonna lie, I could not relate to her where she tries to hide her fangirlness. I love her expressions. I guess you could say this was for me to a degree, like, no, I can't see, and I'm thankful that I could not relate to her in that way, that I have a lot of amazing people surrounding me. Don't look down on me or I guess berate me because I love Hinata so much and just merch in general. I'm very thankful for that. Even if my husband at times is like, why are you doing this? Why are you buying more merch? You don't need any more. I was trying to find the scene where she is sharing about how he has touched her, and I can't find it, but here is a great panel of just reflecting her two different lifestyles where people just have no idea. She has some of the funniest expressions. I mean, more often than not, I was laughing so hard when reading this. It truly is a joy because Akari, she is incredibly funny, and the things that she thinks, the things that she does, and the things that she says is just so on point. I finally found that panel that I was trying to find where she's talking about how Renren has changed her life, and I'm gonna read it real quick because I really loved it. It reflects how I felt too. She says, I simply liked his looks in the beginning, but when I saw how hard he worked toward his dreams, I started loving him more and more. He gave me so much strength, and so I've spent everything on Renren since then, and now I'm completely broke. I can't relate to the completely broke part, but how he gave her strength, again, is just why I think I love this series so much. It's so nice seeing a middle-aged woman, so to speak, or an older woman that's not in high school, have these similar struggles that I do and see her love for her favorite idol. It is an amazing read, and honestly, I would recommend if you're looking for a character where you can relate to everything I just said about spending your money on merch or maybe just manga, looking for that validation and having a main character that has those struggles and that excitement and that fangirlness, I would recommend reading this series just for that reason alone. It's very prevalent in volume 1. There is like a tone shift as we go into volume 2, but I don't think it's a bad one. I still really enjoyed this series. In fact, I just featured volume 2 in my latest top 5 Wednesday video of final volumes that I thought were really good. But before I go into the second volume, I just want to say that I also really liked, I didn't recognize it, well, I wouldn't say I didn't recognize, I didn't see it the first time that I read it because I just was so focused on that validation aspect, but I thought it interesting that this manga does a great job of portraying when rumors spread and when we believe those rumors, and rather than going to the person maybe that the rumors are about and getting them addressed, that misunderstandings, great and grave misunderstandings, can take place and really affect friendships. We see that definitely take place in this volume. I'm glad that it wasn't hugely drawn out. Now, it's interesting because this volume, the cliffhanger was just as intense as the first time I read it. Be sure to have volume 2 on hand when you read this series because the cliffhanger at the end of this one is going to leave you desperate for the next volume, and I felt that just as strongly. I told myself last night, I was like, I'm just gonna read the first volume. After I read it, I was like, we're gonna go read some of the second volume, and I did that the first time I read this series as well, which makes me laugh because even though I knew it was coming, I knew how this volume unfolded, I still needed to read the next volume immediately. And that is where we come to volume 2 and we're seeing more of the focus on the romance. I feel like we see a lot more character development, especially in Kazama because he's very quiet, and I feel like the second time that I read the series, I really appreciate his subtle character growth, how more expressive he gets throughout this series, and how Akari even grows. Obviously, she still has her deep love for Renren, and I really love how that plays a role in the romance. I wish I could talk more about that, but I feel like it's a great, beautiful part of the story and really, really enjoy it, so I'm not going to give any spoilers spoilers about that, but both of them grow. Really loved seeing how natural of a progression it was. And the manga creator actually mentioned that at the end, where she just felt like things naturally happened. And I felt like, especially with the romance, it was just like that. For a 2-volume series, I was really surprised that the romance was never rushed, especially, like I said, if we're not having that strong focus on it in volume 1. I mean, it's sort of there, but the characters are sort of starting to realize, oh, I think I like this person, and more than just a friend. So we see that exploration in the second volume, but again, it was never ever rushed. I didn't feel like anything was lacking. I think the only thing I felt this second time is I wish there was a little bit more, because there was a chapter focuses more on Akari, but I feel like it was actually pivotal to the story, going back to the beginning, because you find out some things concerning a certain friendship and why Akari hides her fangirlness, and it was addressed in this volume, and I still really enjoyed that. But I was like, man, we're getting that romance, and I caught myself this time of wanting more of that romance, even though it wasn't like bad where I didn't get enough. I just wanted more. I feel like that's usually how I am with romantic stories. Anyway, just give me more, please. But one of my favorite tropes is in this manga, and I don't know how I missed it the first time, but I love and adore the trope so much that our feelings can reach other people. Kazuma and Akari are having this fantastic situation. Akari has sort of been outed as a fangirl. She's like, I'm gonna run away from this situation. I'm gonna do what I can to try and hide this. Kazuma's like, no, don't do that. He says, specifically, he says, if you talk to her sincerely, your words will reach her. Tell her how you feel without trying to bluff. I love that. I can't even explain just how much I love and adore that trope. I mean, that trope was first introduced to me in Kimi ni Todoke, which has been one of my favorite series today. And anytime I see that in manga, I just get so fired up, because I feel like manga really, these characters show how beautiful it is when we genuinely share our feelings and our feelings reach that other person, and how there's reconciliation, there's forgiveness, and there's a moving on that happens. It's so really good. It was in this series as well. I'm like, how did I miss that the first time I read it? I really appreciate how Kazuma is a very quiet man who's just very supportive. In the beginning when I read this series, it honestly reminded of me and my husband, because Akari's like talk, like not in a bad way, but like she is just telling him all the things she loves about Ren. He's just taking it in stride. He's genuinely listening to her, even though it's like, I feel a little bit lost, but he wants to connect with Akari in that way. It reminded me of my husband. He's the same exact way. Even if he's like, I don't fully get your obsession with wanting to collect all of the haiku things, like he likes haiku as well, but he will listen to me as I just share all of these things. And so I appreciate seeing that real life element that I can relate to in this story. It was another thing I deeply loved about it. I really, really loved it. It was a beautiful, thought-provoking ending. Everything was wrapped up so wonderfully. I think the only complaint that I would have is I would love to see what comes next for these characters, what comes next in their story. So well done. And I feel like just the creators, or the note from the creator, felt like she just says something about the romance that she really wanted readers to know. And I wish I could tell her, I see what you said, and I think you did it so incredibly well. What that is, you're gonna have to read it and find out. I highly recommend this series. 2 volumes, hilarious art, great characters. That validation is very real. If you're looking for that validation, it's only 2 volumes and a very funny story, great romance, great characters. Sorry, I actually repeated myself in my excitement, but I cannot recommend this enough. This will definitely be another series that I reread in the future, because I just enjoyed it that much and just had so many great takeaways. I absolutely love and adore it. Let me know though, friends, do you like buying merch? Do you spend probably too much money on merch like me as well? I would love to hear from you, friends. And if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. And thank you so much for watching. Bye!